Yuba County 5. The American Dyatlov for some, or for others, the Yuba County 5. This case is about 5 young men from Yuba City, California in the USA. It is important that I mention the fact that they all were considered to have mild mental or psychiatric issues. Many believe that this may have played a role in the night's events and their subsequent disappearances and deaths. Nonetheless, they were high-functioning, and 2 of the men, Jack and Gary, had their driver's license. Let's learn about these men. Jack Madruga. Jack was 30 years old and lived at home with his parents in Marysville, California. Jack, who had undiagnosed learning disabilities, worked as a dishwasher at dried fruit company Sunsweet Growers and helped Sterling land a job there, though he was later fired for being unable to use new dishwashing equipment. Bill Sterling. Bill was 29 and from Yuba City, California. Bill was a religious man who lived at home with his parents. Sterling had spent most of his childhood in the Napa State Hospital, then called Napa Insane Asylum, according to case files with the Yuba County Sheriff's Office. Bill considered Jack his best friend. The night the men disappeared, Bill had left the house with his $15 weekly allowance and maps of California, Sacramento, Stockton, and San Francisco. The Sterlings had a cabin near Bucks Lake in Plumas National Forest. One fishing trip as a teenager was enough for Bill, who told his parents he never wanted to go again, and skipped out on subsequent retreats. Jackie Hewitt. Jackie was 24 and lived at home with his parents in Marysville, California. Diagnosed with mild learning disabilities, Jackie and Ted were the best of friends. Ted Weir. Ted was 32 years old and lived with his parents in Olivehurst, California. Diagnosed with a learning disability, he had worked a few jobs but ultimately quit because his family thought his disabilities were only causing problems for him at work. Gary Mathias. Gary was 25 and from Olivehurst, California. He lived with his parents and worked for his stepfather's gardening business. Gary used to be in the Army. He was discharged for medical reasons. Gary had been diagnosed with schizophrenia and was known to be violent and had violent outbursts. He suffered from psychotic episodes and had been arrested for assault twice before. Recently, though, he had changed that behavior and was doing very well and adhering to his medications. Gary had recently joined the boys group. The boys loved basketball. Sports was one of their favorite hobbies. Whenever they were together, it was to play basketball or to watch a basketball game. They played together on a team called the Gateway Gators, which was a local program for the mentally handicapped. They had a long-awaited game coming up the next day, on February 25th, that they were extremely excited about. It was their first game in a week-long tournament sponsored by the Special Olympics, for which the winner would get a free week in Los Angeles as a prize. They began their prep work for the game early, and some of them made sure to have their uniforms laid out the night before, and even asked their parents to make sure they were awake on time. The night before the big game, they all went out to watch a basketball game, UC Davis playing Chico State. Jack was the one who drove them to the basketball game in his Mercury Montego. The trip up to Chico was 50 miles. They all dressed lightly that evening, as they had only planned to go to the basketball game and then back home. On their way home from the game, the boys had stopped by a convenience store in Chico called Bear's Market to buy some snacks. This was the last time they were seen alive. Ted's mother woke up afraid at 5 a.m. the next morning. She immediately called Bill Sterling's mother, who had been up since 2 a.m. and had already spoken to Jackie's family. Bill's parents told investigators that they had tried talking the boys out of going to Chico that night, especially because of their game the next day, but the boys went anyway. The weeks came and went, with no word or sighting of the boys. On February 28th, a U.S. Forest Service worker found Madruga's 1967 Mercury Montego at the Plumas National Forest snow line, while out marking timber. Inside the vehicle, it was noted that the boys ate nearly all of the snacks they purchased at Bear's Market, and that the car had a quarter tank of gas and started right up when officials hotwired the car. The boys were not familiar with these roads. None of the boys, except Gary, liked to go camping or enjoy the outdoors. The fact that the Montego did not have any damage to the underside of the car going up the then unpaved roads was odd. Even the logger trucks and rescue vehicles incur moderate damage when going down those roads. It's like the men were familiar with the area, or the driver was familiar with the area, and knew how to drive the roads in a way that would indicate they knew where they were going, and avoided unexpected turns that would cause damage to the underside of the car. After months of looking through trees, sifting through snow, chasing dozens of false leads, and consulting a psychic, investigators finally received promising information. A man named Joe Scholes had been in the area camp scouting and got stuck in the snow while taking a drive. He got out of his vehicle and tried pushing himself out. While doing this, he suffered from severe chest pains. Joe was having a heart attack, and at the time he admitted to having hallucinations. But he was sure that he had seen 6 or 7 shadowy figures with flashlights and headlights near the snow line the night the boys went missing. He had tried asking them for help, but his pleas were ignored. They shut off their flashlights and went off. This led Joe to lay in his car with the engine running for heat until it ran out of gas. He had no choice but to start walking downhill to the lodge he had passed earlier, down the hill where he was able to get help. It wasn't until June 4th when a small group of motorcyclists happened upon a U.S. Forest Service worksite near the Daniel Sink Campground, about 3 miles southwest of Bucks Lake, and get this, 19.4 miles from Madruga's Montego, where a foul-smelling 60-foot trailer with a broken window someone had broken to get in was located. Inside the trailer, Ted was found under 8 layers of sheets with his hands on his chest. Both pant legs were rolled up above his knees, revealing apparent blood poisoning and gangrene, as well as having lost 5 toes to frostbite. Forensic analysis of his beard growth indicated he survived 4 to 6 weeks after going missing. And during this time, he had lost about 80 to 100 pounds from his 5'11", 200-pound body. I'm not sure if he was simply laying under 8 layers of sheets or if he was wrapped in them. I've heard both from various sources. They also found a wallet, a ring with the word Ted inscribed in it, and a beaded necklace. Also, they found a yellow metal watch with a missing mini crystal on the side of the table. The family said that did not belong to any of the men. Other findings that make this case ultra mystifying is that there was an outside storage locker with 31 cans of food having been opened and emptied. No conclusive fingerprints were found on the cans. But then, you also have another locker that had enough meals to last all 5 men an entire year. They were all unopened. Also, was a propane tank that could have heated the trailer, among other things. It was left untouched. Evidence showed a candle had recently been lit. Ted's cause of death was ruled as exposure/pulmonary edema. Inside the trailer, investigators found Gary's sneakers and Weir's sturdier leather shoes gone. So it was believed that Mathias was inside the trailer at least long enough to switch out shoes. Also, for those wondering, the cans of food were open with an Army-type can opener called an Army P38 can opener, something that one would think only Mathias and Madruga knew how to use. 2 days later, Jack and Bill were found 8 miles closer to the car on opposite sides of a mountain road leading to the trailer. Bill's bones were found close together, but Jack's were found scattered around and picked at by animals in the nearby stream. The key to his Montego was found inside his pants pocket. The Yuba County coroner ruled Jack's death as hypothermia and exposure. The coroner was unable to determine what killed Bill. It was likely from similar circumstances. but it has never been determined. During the search, Jackie's father was advised by investigators not to help in the search of his son at this point in time. He ignored them and ended up finding his son's jacket near the trailer. When he picked up the jacket, his son's spine fell out. Examiners identified him through his teeth in his skull that investigators found 50 feet away from Jackie's spine, who had also died from hypothermia and exposure, it is believed. This search brought no signs of Gary Mathias. The search continued on for 2 more weeks, but with little to no progress being made, the investigators called off the search on June 19, 1978. Gary's family, unfortunately, did not get the closure they craved. In a letter that ran in the Marysville Appeal Democrat, co-written by the families of Jack, Bill, Jackie, and Ted, the letter talks about the investigation, law enforcement not doing enough to find them in time, and they wonder why the boys went up that mountain road. In a quote from the letter, "Questions, but no answers. Bitterness, some. Anger, sometimes. Bewilderment, always," the letter read. When your son leaves home with friends to go to a basketball game, do you always put your arms around him, give him a kiss, and remind him how much you love him? You really should. He may never come back to you. This case is ultra crazy mysterious, and it does not make sense. I can only imagine all the different scenarios, the weather, and being alive long enough to have my beard grow and lose 100 pounds. It's just mind-boggling. I personally have my own ideas of what probably had something to do with this happening. It is really freaking weird that Gary is missing and gone and has not been found nearby like the other boys. And then there are the shoes that he took from Ted, which means he was around, in or near the trailer at some point in time. And now he is nowhere to be found. He had enough sense in him to change his shoes, probably. Why not heat up the trailer? Or, I don't know. It just seems really odd that Gary hasn't been found. Let's go over some of the theories that I found on the internet. Even knowing that 4 of the 5 men had died in the Sierra, investigators could not completely explain what had led to those deaths. They still had found no explanation for why the men were there, although they learned that Mathias had friends in a small town called Forbestown, and police believed it was possible that in an attempt to visit them on the way back home, the men may have taken a wrong turn near Oroville that put them on the mountain road. For whatever reason, the men had left the Montego. They had, instead of going back down the road, where they passed the lodge that Shones later returned to, continued along the road in the direction they were originally going. Purposeful motion like that is not consistent with the circular patterns traveled by those who genuinely believe themselves lost. The day before the men went missing, a Forest Service snowcat had gone along the road in that direction to clear snow off the trailer roof so it would not collapse. It was possible, police believe, that the group had decided to follow the tracks it left through snowdrifts 4 to 6 feet high to wherever they led, in the belief that shelter was not too far away. Madruga and Sterling probably succumbed to hypothermia midway along the long walk to the trailer. It is assumed that once they found the trailer, the other 3 broke the window to enter. Since it was locked, they may have believed it was private property and may have feared arrest for theft if they used anything else they found there. After Wire died, or the others believed he had, they perhaps chose to attempt to return to civilization by different routes, overland, on foot. That theory sounds plausible. There are so many that make sense to an extent. I myself do not know what could have happened. I have my ideas, But I always catch myself in the middle of an idea thinking, no, that's probably not it. I understand these boys were considered mentally disabled, but I don't think that was 100% the reason they ended up in this situation. I myself think that Mathias was most certainly an influence on this one. I believe that maybe he wanted to show them around the area, or maybe they got into an argument. I don't know. I really don't know what could have happened on this night. It would be interesting to visit the area and reenact what routes the boys took that night to get a better understanding of what it is could have happened. Let me know what you think in the comments section. I want to hear your theories. Let me know if there's anything I missed. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed the video, and take care.